let Dustin start. He talks more than everybody.
Oh, that's cool.
True.
So we're out here, and obviously in a beautiful day in California, better than British weather, which always sucks to us. But we're with you guys today. Appreciate you guys coming out. You guys from the Rumblers Car Club from Los Angeles. We saw these two Rivieras at the Grand National Roadster Show about a week ago, and for me, it really instantly hit me the 60s and 70s flavor. So I don't know if you guys, which one of you guys want to start in terms of how you guys got together and a bit more about these cars.
Well, originally our club was came up about in 1996, and it was generally a hot rod and custom car club out of New York, and it branched off to different chapters, throughout the states, and then eventually a couple chapters overseas in Europe, and we have nomads and stuff all around the world, and most of the guys were into hot rods and customs, but in California, obviously, especially in the Los Angeles area, Southern California area, we're kind of like the car capital, even though some of them were built here, we had plants where Downey, Southgate, Van Nuys, so those areas around those plants, they had guys that worked there that were in the car scene, and at night they would cruise the boulevard, drag racing, shit like that, low riding, whatever. And so I wanted to bring the Southern California, into the Rumblers Club, because they didn't really understand that you don't have to just be a hot rodder or a custom car, like a 50s custom guy, because back then the guys out here that did that stuff, they did everything. Like I said earlier, they not only did it, they evolved from being a hot rodder, open wheel, Model A's, 32, stuff like that, land speed guys. Those guys, they went and came back from the war. They were into bikes, they had chopped cars, from the 50s, and then eventually it evolved into the low riding scene, because obviously the cars changed, and maybe one guy couldn't afford to build a 60s newer car, off the lot, like some guys could. So they got their 50s cars and they were already chopped, and they would put hydraulics on them and reverse wheels and lake pipes and stuff like that, and crazy paint jobs and fur, and it turned it into a lowrider, and
that's cool.
That's what we're trying to capture. We're trying to capture that like era where, out here the lowriding's huge in LA area, Southern California, and all of California. It's really big, and it originally a lot of guys want to say like, oh, it started in San Jose. That didn't. It started here. It started in Southern California, and it started somewhere in the, I would say, like mid-late 50s, 57, 58-ish. That's like when the first couple cars were, introduced to hydraulics. And
mid-50s.
Yeah, mid-late 50s, like around 57, 58, and it took off from there, and like guys like Bill Hines and stuff like that were the ones that were kind of like engineering the whole hydraulic thing. But they were doing them on custom cars. They weren't technically lowriders yet, because they didn't have 60s cars yet. There were late 50s, mid 50s, and 40s cars that were doing it to. One was a Corvette by the name of Exonic, and the other one was a mid 50s Ford that was built by a guy named Jim Logue from the Midwest and moved here to Long Beach. And that car was juiced on all four corners, and the hood was juiced. And a lot of people want to fight back and forth on who built the first one, whatever, but they both came out at the same time, same year, pretty much the same era, same time of the year. So it was like around fall of like 58 or 57 or something like that. And, and that's when it really took off. And that's what we're trying to bring back to the custom scene, was like the beginning of lowriding, not just like the G bodies and the hoppers and all these guys that you see like on Crenshaw and stuff like that. That's a modern version of like what,
it's between,
it's before Snoop Dogg and NWA and all that shit, with, cruising in my 64, and all that crap. But it's like, it's before that, what I mean? This is, they didn't have rap music back then. They're not the ones that introduced lowriding to the scene, what I mean? It was, guys that build cars, it wasn't just dudes with money and drug dealer money that built cars, it was dudes that knew how to work on stuff, that were engineers or
regular people,
welders. They were blue collar guys that built stuff. And
totally.
And it was their family car. You see a lot of pictures of their family cars. They're back then. You saw a Riviera 64. What was it called? The Lemon Drop. Lemon Drop. It was a 65 Riviera. It was like a.
It was kind of cobwebs like this. So.
It was yellow, like a yellow candy with cobwebbing on it. It was like yellow ice pearl or something like that. And that was a family car. Like, you see a picture of the guy with his family, standing next to it. It was like, it just looked like a regular Sunday church picture, but with the lowrider next to it. It was just weird. And you got guys like Howard Gribble and stuff like that, and his buddy Alan Duke that had, paper plate cars back then, right off the lot, 64, 65, 66, 67, and Howard Gribble was probably one of the first guys to have a juiced 66 Riviera right off the dealer floor, you know?
That's
so,
cool.
you know, and to see those cars, you know, and you see them in pictures, you're like, whose car is this? And then all of a sudden, like, that guy, you know, now is coming out with his photos.
Yeah.
You know, he has a Flickr account and whatnot, and you see that stuff, and you're like, damn, and people start tracking, and they're like, this whole time, you know, low riding was not just G-bodies, you know, not just Cadillacs, you know, like, and, you know, Le Cabs and Bromes, you know, and, you know, Monte Carlos, you know, from the 80s, you know, that was something before that, you know, and a lot of people don't know that, you know, everybody thinks like, oh, you know, they think of lowrider, they think the Monte Carlo from Training Day, or, you know, Dr. Dre 64 Impala, you know, or whatever, or Eazy-E 63. That's all they think of, you know, that's all they can think of, that and wire wheels, Dayton's, like, you know, and it's ridiculous, you know, so we're trying to, you know, reintroduce something that was already there, you know, and bring it to the custom scene. And there's already guys that have been doing it, but it's not on a big scale, you know. So and for me, I'm not. I'm kind of like a traditionalist, you know. I'm not into like the mainstream stuff that's happening today, you know. And it's cool, you know. Everybody's got their own flavor and everything, but you know, because we're a vintage car club, we kind of try to stay within the eras, you know. So you got the guys that have like the 30s and 40s hot rods, and you guys got the guys with the 50s and 60s customs, and then that kind of blends into the 60s, you know, customs and lowriders, you know. They kind of go hand in hand, you know, because you can see those two cars cruising down the street together, you know. You can see all of them cruising down the street together, because back in the 60s and 70s, that's what you saw. You know, if you're on Van Nuys Boulevard or something like that, or even some parts of Whittier Boulevard, sometimes, you know, you see like a, you know, photo or video of somebody cruising, and you would see a hot rod in there, you know, open wheel car, you know, and it was probably, you know, flaked out with the, you know, or like, you know, some crazy chrome, you know, lake pipes on it, and, you know, some wire wheels or something like that. You know, guys changed them up, but, you know, those dudes used to have hot rods, they used to have lowriders, they used to have customs. It was you know, they had everything, you know. They had motorcycles, they had everything.
Sure.
It wasn't just, you know, one style and that's it, you know.
And that's cool that you guys cruise together with different, you know, car culture. I think it's so important, because everyone at the end of the day, we all love the passion of cars. You know, it doesn't matter where he is, and I appreciate you guys actually, and a lot of respect for the fact you're bringing back history that people don't. It's the mainstream media catch on to something, only show part of the culture, like you said, you know, Dr. Dre maybe was 64. It's like, it's not just it. And now you guys are saying, hey, it's just regular dudes back then. Yeah. Just like you guys probably now in the garage doing your car up, and that's awesome. And the paint, I mean, blow my mind just how cool these paints on both these cars. I mean, the design, I mean, I believe this is your work.
Yes.
Where do you get a lot of the inspiration from? And I know obviously you got the nostalgia back in the day, but do you have anything specific or anything you look at that gives you inspiration to bring these out like this? I mean, it's insane when you think of how amazing the patterns are.
Lots of acid.
That's funny.
No, for real.
I like going. No, I'm serious.
No, for real. Yeah, Ralph grew up in the valley, you know, and he was around a lot of old painters too. So you know, as a kid,
I like going down to the roots of things.
Hell yeah.
Right where it began. To me, that's bitching. Lowriders, customs. Right when they started, that's where they're at their prime.
What does that mean to you? I mean, to go back then, what does it you feel? I mean, because when I see cars, I feel them, and I'm gravitated to them. That's why I feel these. I knew you guys had something more to share. What is it for you?
Well, when I first started getting into this stuff, to get me out of trouble, my brother would take me to drag races, and you seeing all the showboats going down the quarter mile, we're always bitching because they always had flashy paint jobs, you know. And when it finally came down to start painting and going down to the roots of the painters that I wanted to not copy but almost make a tribute to their style, I found out the same guy painting the dragsters were the same guys painting the lowriders on Van Nuys Boulevard.
And the choppers too.
The choppers, yeah. Bill Carter, Walt Prey, Mario Gomez, the best of the best, which, you know, he's gone now, but it's a tribute to them, really.
That's amazing. Wow, that's incredible. How long did it take to paint both cars?
The 65 took about exactly 2 years. Only because I was traveling back and forth to China. I was working for Disney at the time.
Okay.
And this one took exactly 30 days.
Wow, that's impressive.
I don't even think that. Like, well, if you consider that we, you know, did the sides last year, that was like 4 days, you know, and then we redid the top half, and that was within the last month, you know.
I've always liked the psychedelic paint jobs. To me, they were the best. They showed the style. You can add a little bit of yourself to them, you know. And as far as time-wise, we try to work as fast as possible, especially on his. He's our president, or we'll get yelled at.
That's funny.
But you know, as far as time, we don't go in with a plan.
Sure.
We lay down one thing and everything has to work off of that. That's how I did that one. That's how I did this one. I have another one I'm doing at the shop now.
That's cool.
And hopefully I do plenty more. But they're time consuming.
They are, but the result is just incredible.
It's brain consuming.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, brain like you have no idea.
I got my day job, and then I do this at night. So I'm up at 5 in the morning, go to bed at 2 a.m. So I'm 3 hours of sleep. You get all kinds of craziness.
Yeah, that's lack of sleep probably creates an incredible result,
sleep,
right?
Yeah.
That's cool, man. I appreciate you guys hanging out with us today. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.